Hello, hello, hello. All right, so let's quickly look at some of these Excel functions as it is used on text. All right, in the previous ones, we were able to apply functions to numbers. All right, that's numerical values, and where we were able to look at some AND functions, we saw if functions, and then we were able to apply to some calculations. All right. Now for text, we have functions for text. For example, this is a proper function. We are going to be explaining each and every one of them. We have the upper function, lower, left, right, mid, length, find, search, replace. We have trim, concatenate. We have this substitute. All right. Now we also have this data here, which we are going to be using as a sample data set to practice each of these. For example, the trim, proper, upper, lower, and length. Now, first and foremost, we are going to be looking at the proper function. And now what the proper function does is that it's going to capitalize each word in a given text string. Right, so let's take, for example, that we have a text that starts with small letter. And using the proper function, you can convert that as the first text into capitalize. It's going to capitalize each word in that particular text. Right, so let's look at a typical example of what we are talking about. All right, for example, we have this text here, which is Grace Peter, and you can see all are in lowercase, both the first letter in each of the words. Now, to use a proper function, use your equal sign, then type proper and open the bracket. It says you should select the text. All right, so you have to select a text you want to apply the proper function to, then close your bracket. And now you can see what happens. It picked the Grace, capitalize the first letter, pick Peter, and then capitalize it. So this is what proper function does in Microsoft Excel. Now these are built-in functions, as we've said. All right, and a user should know how to use this function. So the text that we saw here, for example, once you open this bracket proper, that means it takes only one parameter, which is the text. So this is the text that should be converted to capital letter. You can even put a, let's say, Grace here. All right, so you see what happened. It converted this to Grace. Right, so that's how proper function. Right, and also we also have this upper function. So what the upper function does is that it converts a text string to all uppercase letters. Right, so numbers, punctuations and spaces are not affected whenever you are using this upper function. We also have another one called the lower function. So what it does is that it converts a text string to all lowercase letters. All right, is the opposite of the upper function. So numbers, punctuations, and spaces are not affected here. All right, and we also have what is called the length. Now this is going to calculate the length of the word, right, including even spaces. So it's going to count space as as a text, as a value, and include it. We are going to be looking at that here. Now for the trim function, so whenever you're working with data, you may be coming across data which are not properly clean. All right, it could be data from users that gave maybe double spaces, or even they gave spaces before their first name, for example, in this case that we have here. All right, and also a user might even give like double spaces or even triple of them. All right, and then include the last name or whatsoever. So what the trim function does is that it removes anything called extra spaces from text, and then it will leave only single spaces between words. All right, for example, the space between Samuel and John is going to leave only a single space, just as you're using your space bar on your keyboard, or when you are writing the exact space to give to two different words, in like spaces in between words. So that's what trim will do. Right, and then it doesn't give spaces to characters. For example, JOHN, it will keep those spacing as it came. All right, so using this data, let's start with the trim function and see how it's going to be working in our data set. So use the equal sign and then TRIM, right? That is the trim function. And then let's select the text we want to trim. So select this cell A10, let's close the bracket and hit enter. So this is what happens. All right, it's going to keep both for example, the cases of the text here. For example, Samuel, John, the John is all capital, then Samuel is a combination of capital and also, lower cases. But you notice what happens. It came to this text, then cleared out the spaces before Samuel, then came in between Samuel and John and removed all the extra spaces and gave the exact only a single space, and then remove every extra spaces after the John. All right, so this is how it works. Now to fill the whole spaces, take your mouse here and then just double tap. All right, it's going to apply the same to everything here. Now for the proper, we said that what the proper does is that it capitalizes each of the words, right? So let's use our equal sign and then proper function, and then let's select the text here. Let's start from here first and then close the bracket. So you see what happens. It doesn't remove extra spaces. Its work is to, make sure that the first word is capitalized, and we can see here, so it lowers every other capital letters within this text, Samuel, John. Now we wouldn't want to do that. We would want to, apply the proper function to the, the trim here. We've already trimmed this, so we can as well as cancel this. Let's delete this and then let's try to use the proper here, proper of this, and then we get our exact value. All right, so this text has already been trimmed, and then we are having the proper of a trimmed text. So you can also combine both the proper and the trim in the same place. Instead of you to start clicking on these cells again, you can just pick from this particular column. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So you write the proper, combine it with trim, and then use this particular cell to fill out the whole column. Now let's try that. So what we are saying is that use your equal sign, and then we use our proper, open a bracket, then use your trim, open another bracket. So we are trimming this text, finding the proper of a trim of that cell, and hit enter. So you have the same result. All right, so you can just double tap here, and then we have the whole data here. So you notice our data is taking shape. Okay, and then for the upper, maybe we would want to capitalize everything here. So use your equal sign, use upper function here. Then for the upper, you can apply to a text that has already been clean. For example, this text, you can apply to either this or to this, or you can as well as write another function inside here, or you can as well as even combine the upper, combine the proper, and then combine the trim. I think we can do that. So let's find the upper of a proper of a trim of this text. So we close how many brackets? 1, 2, 3. All right. So we have our result here. Please open the bracket. Let's check again. So what we are saying is that inside here, we have to first of all trim this cell A10. Thereafter, we find the proper of a trim values, and then we convert everything to upper, and then we have our result. So double tap to fill the whole of this data set here. Then we also have the same thing for lower. Okay, for the lower, you can just use lower. Instead of us to write all those long functions, let's just tap on here to lower everything here. So what this one does is that it lowers the whole text from capital letter, it brings them to small letters. Now for the length, we also have the length function len, and then let's check for the length of this. Right, we have about 28, and if you start counting Samuel, this is Samuel, and then you count John, you notice that is not going to reach this 28. Right, please take note, this is the length of this is 28. Now if you find the length of let's say here we have it to be 11. So length also calculates the spaces between two different texts. All right, so how many spaces are within? So let's count this. Samuel is S-A-M-U-E-L, Samuel is about 6 words, then John here is 4. 6 plus 4, that is 10. But we had 28 here, right? We had 28 there. So that means 10, 28 minus 10, that should be around 8. 28 minus 10, that should be 18, right? So we have other spaces like 18 different characters. So what happens is that Excel sees, using the len function, the Excel also sees those spaces as characters, and it adds it to our values. All right, so let's say you just want to find the length of word here for Samuel John, right? Let's say for Samuel John, you can just tap, like, we can use any of them because we've already cleaned this data here. So if we use this, we are going to be getting 11, right? We have Samuel, which is 10, John, which is Samuel, which is 6, John is 4, that is 10, then plus a space between, all right, the space between here, so it makes up that 11. So now you can tap on here to have other length. So this is the length of this text here. All right, so I think we are basically going to be stopping here, and we are going to divide the lectures into part 2, like part 1 and 2. This is part 1 for the text functions, and then in the next one we'll be looking at the concatenate. We also look at these other functions that we have in Microsoft Excel. So see you next time.